Welcome in to another episode of the Women's Basketball Now podcast here on the Hoop Central YouTube channel. I'm your host, Hamilton Neal. Thank you, the viewers out there, for taking the time to join us as you do in every single video. And as I said in the last video, and as I'm probably going to say in future videos as well, we have tons of content coming up on this channel right now. Big month of June right now, lots of videos coming out. Even though it's kind of the heart of the off season right now in women's college basketball, we still have lots of news pouring in when it comes to the transfer portal, when it comes to matchups being set, when it comes to recruiting. All of these things are still happening. All of the news is still coming in for us, so lots of good stuff to get to. And here today, we're going to be talking about UConn women's basketball as they've set a matchup with the Maryland Terrapins for this upcoming season. The Huskies are going to travel to the XFINITY Center in College Park for this matchup, and it'll be played on December the 11th. UConn and Maryland signed a 2-game contract beginning in 2020, but the series was delayed due to COVID. Maryland will travel to UConn during the 2023-2024 season. The Huskies are 7-0 all-time against Maryland. The last time the teams faced off was on November 19th, 2017. UConn won that game 97-72 at the XL Center. Maryland finished 23-9 overall and 13-4 in the Big Ten last season and advanced to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA Tournament. UConn finished 30-6 overall, 16-1 in the Big East Conference, and they advanced to the national championship game where they fell to South Carolina. Again, this is a very big matchup for both teams. Obviously for UConn, we've talked about this on previous shows. Because they play in the Big East where there aren't as many strong teams, they have to get big games in the non-conference to really have a great resume at the end of the season. And obviously UConn is expected most nights to win. And I think here in this game they're going to be expected to get this W because this is a Maryland team that has had as much roster turnover this offseason as any team in the country, maybe the most, because this roster this season is not the one that you saw last year. On the other side with UConn, they have most of their players coming back along with new additions, such as Ayanna Patterson and Ice Brady as freshmen, along with Lula Pesenichal as a transfer from Fairfield. So UConn's roster and the bones of their roster are back. That cannot be said for Maryland. And they only have 2 seniors on this roster, Diamond Miller and Faith Masonius. And out of those 2, Diamond Miller got a lot more production last year. Now, Masonius is a forward, can play some on the inside, and is more like that stretch forward kind of player. But Diamond Miller in the backcourt was one of their best players last year, alongside Ashley Owusu, alongside, obviously, Angel Reese, who was their best player. She's off to LSU, Owusu's off to VT, so Diamond Miller is really going to be their most important player this season. And again, only one of 2 seniors. Cheyenne Sellers is coming back. She's a sophomore, was a freshman this past year. Emma Chardon was a freshman last year. She's now a sophomore. But the rest of this roster was not there last year. So let's talk about the transfers first, because there's a number of freshmen and there's a number of transfers. First, Lavender Briggs from Florida. Productive player for the Gators, was on a good Florida team last year but transferred during the season and obviously did not play any for Maryland last year. She'll be getting her first action with the Terps this season. Then you have Brene Alexander from Vanderbilt, Abby Myers from Princeton, one of the best players in the portal, I think a top 5 player in this transfer portal cycle, Ivy League Player of the Year, one of the best players in the entire country last year. Then you have Alyssa Pinson from USF, Ali Kubik from Towson, and then the freshmen, you have Gia Cook and Brianna McDaniel. Both were signed with Texas A&M. And then when Gary Blair retired and Joni Taylor came in, both of them were released from their national letters of intent and are now signed on with Maryland. And alongside those 2, you have Mila Reynolds and Ava Ciola. So you have 4 freshmen, 5 transfers, 2 sophomores, and 2 seniors. So only 4 players on this team were on last year's Terp squad. And you can raise the question, with these new additions and with this whole new look roster, are they going to be better than they were last year? Remember, last year they were 23-9, 13-4 in the Big Ten, went to the Sweet 16 with Angel Reese, with Owusu, with Katie Benson, with Chloe Bibby, and along with some of these other players. But all those names I just mentioned aren't there now, and it's going to take some time for this team to gel and for them to really get a feel for each other. Remember, 5 transfers, 4 freshmen, 2 sophomores, 2 seniors. And remember, those 2 sophomores this year, Cheyenne Sellers and Chardon, they didn't get a whole lot of playing time last year. So they're almost like redshirt freshmen in a way. they'll be playing as sophomores, but really probably getting their first big action, even if a player like Emma Chardon gets that much playing time. Sellers should get more playing time than Chardon. I think she'll be a part of the rotation, but those two are almost like freshmen themselves. So Miller and Masonius are really going to have to carry this team with the leadership, because I don't think they're bringing in anyone else. I don't think many other top programs are bringing in players. Now, Shaylee Gonzalez is out there in the portal, and she was a late entry into the portal just given the circumstances at BYU because of their coaching situation. But if they don't go after her, which I don't think they will, they have a lot of guards here, I think some other high major program will get her. So I think Maryland's done adding players, and I think this is the roster that they're going to roll with. And I think you're going to see a lot of Myers and a lot of Briggs with Miller and Masonius. I think out of the transfers, Abby Myers obviously is going to play right away. Lavender Briggs, I think those two are going to be the best out of the bunch, but Brene Alexander has a lot of potential, and I think Kubik from Towson is going to be a good player. So definitely an interesting Maryland roster. I think they're going to be a good team, but not quite the best in the Big Ten. They'll be right up there, but again, it's going to take some time to gel because it's a completely new look team. Now, as for UConn, like I said, they have most of their roster coming back. And when you look at everything in the guard department, it looks absolutely outstanding. Healthy Paige Becker's coming back, along with Nika Meal, Lou Lopez-Senechal, transfer from Fairfield, Caroline Ducharme, and AZ Fudd. Those are the backcourt players, the perimeter players for the Huskies. Then, in the forward department, you have Amari DeBerry, Aaliyah Edwards, Dorka Uhas, Ice Brady, Ayanna Patterson, and Aubrey Griffin. Now, Patterson is more of a wing, more of a three player, and so is Aubrey Griffin. Both of those players are primarily like small forwards, but the rest of them, Brady, Edwards, Uhas, and DeBerry, are all post players primarily, and they're not going to stretch out as much to the 15-foot area of the floor. We have seen some UConn post players be able to hit that mid-range jump shot. I think Edwards is the best out of this group at hitting that jump shot as far as stretching the defense and spacing. But Uhas and Brady and obviously DeBerry are going to be players that are going to operate in the post a little bit more. Edwards is starting to get that versatility down and is starting to find that jump shot, which is something that she even had a lot during her freshman year. Kind of lost it during the sophomore season this past year and started during the tournament to kind of get back into form and find that again. So she's really had that from the beginning, but it's developed and it's gotten better and better. And something I expect to see this season is a lot of pick and roll action with Aaliyah Edwards and the guards, but primarily Paige Beckers. Because you remember in the freshman year in 2020, Edwards and Beckers were deadly in the pick and roll action, with Edwards coming up to set the pick, Beckers rolling around either to get to the rim, to pass it off, or to hit that mid-range jump shot, which is her go-to shot. That's where she is most dangerous. Beckers is most dangerous from the mid-range. Fudd is most dangerous from three, but can also get into that pick and roll action and the screen setting and all that motion stuff. Fudd, again, is primarily a three-point shooter, but can do some of that mid-range stuff. I think Lopez-Senechal is going to bring some size to the table. I think she's going to bring some playmaking, getting to the rim. And Nika Meal, obviously, is very, very hard to handle on the defensive end. Big East Defensive Player of the Year this past season, and I think this year could repeat as Defensive Player of the Year in the Big East. Because junior Nika Meal is going to be much, much smarter, much better even on the defensive end than she was this past year, which she was outstanding on defense this year. But I think everyone's going to take a step up and everyone's going to be motivated because of the way that the season ended, losing in the national championship game to South Carolina. And whenever you lose in that championship game, you're so motivated to get back. When you reach a point that far in the season, Final Four, national title game, you're going to be on a mission. And, Paige Beckers talked about that they want to get back to that point, but they want the result to be different. And I think with this roster, they can make that happen. But South Carolina is still there. Aaliyah Boston is still there. And obviously there are a ton of other good teams at the top. Stanford's going to be back. It's going to be a really, really tight, competitive season in women's college basketball, and there's going to be as much parity, I think, as there ever has been. But they're at least the second best team in the country. I think they're going to solidify themselves as the number 2 team in the preseason poll. I feel like South Carolina is going to be the number 1 like they were last year. Remember, they were wire-to-wire number 1 team. Remember, they didn't lose, even with the loss to Missouri, and obviously they lost in the SEC title to Kentucky, but they were wire-to-wire number 1 team. And I think they'll at least start 2022 as the number 1 team, but UConn will be right there on their heels with this roster, especially with junior season from Paige Bueckers, with a junior Nika Meal. Sophomore Caroline Ducharme is going to be, I think, much more embedded in this offense than she was even last year, because remember, last year she got most of her playing time in the regular season when Paige was out and really started to develop and blossom during that time period, and then in the tournament started to hit the bench a little bit more because Bueckers was healthy and Fudd was back to right around 100%. So I think this year it's going to be different. I think we're going to see Bueckers, Ducharme, and Fudd all playing together in different combinations, and it's going to be exciting. And obviously you're going to see a lot of Lou, a lot of Nika Meal as well coming off the bench and being that spark plug, which she has always been for this UConn team. And they're going to have an opportunity with this roster to compete for a national championship. On the Maryland side of things, I think they'll have an opportunity to be in the running for a Big Ten championship and maybe another little run in the NCAA tournament, but it's clearly not a championship team right now, but a very good roster. So this is going to be an exciting game. Again, December 11th, UConn and Maryland, the 8th all-time matchup between these teams. UConn has swept the series all-time 7-0, and their last meeting, again, November 19th, 2017, UConn winning that game 97-72, but they're going to renew things, again, coming up this winter. So that's all the time we have on this episode of Women's Basketball Now. Make sure to keep it locked here on Hoop Central for all the latest in women's college basketball. Make sure to give this video a like, leave a comment as well, and don't forget to subscribe. And when you do, hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single upload. This is Hamilton Neal signing off. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys.